Today on the Able to Care podcast, we are going to be talking about the incredible 5-point scale and how we can use it with individuals we're working with, but also as a self-care and self-management tool. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Able to Care podcast. I'm your host, Andy Baker. And today's episode, we're going to be looking at the incredible 5-point scale. Now, there's a reason I'm calling it the incredible 5-point scale, because it should not be confused with the Likert 5-point scale, which is what most surveys are done with, of whether you strongly disagree, neutral, agree, or strongly agree. That's a Likert 5-point scale. So what is the incredible 5-point scale? Well, the incredible 5-point scale was originally developed for individuals on the autistic spectrum to better be able to understand their emotions, but also to teach self-regulation. It was created by Carrie Dunn-Burren, who described herself as a pretty good teacher from Minnesota. And she developed this kind of very simplistic system, and it is really, really easy and really, really simple. Now, although there is no specific research as far as, whether it's been peer-reviewed and clinically tested, it is a really nice, simple self-management tool that is used by numerous organizations in numerous different settings. So we're just going to go into a little bit about what it is, but also how we can potentially use it as well. So the idea of the 5-point scale, it's a visual and mental tool that helps you kind of rate your emotional intensity on a scale from 1 to 5. Now, this is really useful when I'm working with organizations and teaching in organizations around things like emotional literacy, emotional awareness, and emotional management. It's really important to understand that especially children have a very different concept of emotions than others. Children find it difficult to, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad would you say the pain is? Because if that's the only time you've ever hurt yourself in that way, you don't have anything to compare it against. And therefore, on a scale of 1 to 10, well, I might have only stubbed my toe, but it's going to be a 10 because I've never felt anything so painful in my life. So I may not be able to describe accurately to you exactly how bad it is because I've only got this limited vocabulary. I also try and get over the way children do describe things like asthma attack is they might say, I've got tummy ache, because they don't have the vocabulary to know, well, I'm struggling with my breathing. They're just going to go, it hurts here. My tummy hurts. So because of the limited vocabulary, they may not have the words to express. Now, this is something that most caregivers tend to teach over a period of time. So typically we do a lot of empathic narrative or empathic commentary with children naturally. Who's a happy little boy? Oh, somebody's very cross. That's what we refer to as empathic narrative or empathic commentary, where we're kind of telling the child the feelings that we recognize from them. And we're educating them and helping to regulate them and put them into context of things. We're narrating to help them understand their own emotions, to go, oh, that's what that's called. When that hasn't happened in a typical way, either due to abuse, neglect, or maybe we've got a child who doesn't understand information in a typical way, they may not learn that understanding emotional literacy in the same way. So if I only have the word anger, and when that kid takes my pen, I feel anger, and when that kid pushed me over, I feel anger, and the way I manage anger is I hit. Because I don't have any other words, actually, if we broke it down, well, irritated, frustrated, annoyed, agitated are all different words for the same thing, but they have different levels of intensity. But that's quite complex, and that's something that's going to take time for a child or a person to develop that level of emotional literacy. And the 5-point scale gives a really simple way of kind of understanding this. So let's look at the levels to start off with. But starting off level 1, it's when we're feeling calm and relaxed. Everything's under control. You're in an ideal state. Level 2 is when there's a slight increase in tension or alertness. You might feel a little nervous or excited even. Those two are very, very close together, but you're still in control. You're able to focus. The rational part of your brain is still working okay. Level 3 is when you start to feel more stressed or agitated. You're aware that something's bothering you. You can feel that tension in your system a little bit. And it's time to consider about whether I should do something to manage my feelings. At level 4, we're getting into a significant state of distress or frustration. The emotions feel strong. My emotional brain is starting to take over a little bit, becoming harder to think clearly and to focus. At this point, we need to be taking action to re-regulate and to avoid escalation. Because level 5 is when we're in full state of distress or overwhelm or emotional dysregulation, and our emotions are at a peak, and it's then difficult to manage. There's another example that I combine in the kind of the roller coaster, and I use a roller coaster analogy for understanding this, where at the bottom of the ride, I can get off. When I'm at the top of the ride, that first bit, the click, 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 when I'm at the top of the ride, that's it, I'm on the ride. I got no choices left. So helping people to recognize when they're at level 1, level 2, level 3 is when they still have some choices. When they're at level 4, level 5, their choices are starting to becoming more limited, and it's their behavior controls them, or their emotions are controlling them rather than the other way around. So by helping people to understand this as a gauge, straight away we can help inform them about their emotional literacy, but also their emotional awareness. So we can link these over to how they may feel in the body, because I may recognize tension, but it may need to be explicitly told to me, like the wiggly feeling in the tummy is your level 3. Okay. When you feel hot, that's your level 3. When everything feels tense and you're struggling to focus, that's your level 4. So we can help children or individuals to recognize the specific markers in themselves to improve their emotional literacy and emotional kind of intelligence, if you like. And I say, the more control they've got, the more ability awareness, the more choices they then have. It also allows us to kind of explore it in a case of, so maybe when a kid borrows your pencil, that's, it should be more of a 2 or a 3. Whereas when a kid pushes you over, I understand that being more of a 4 or a 5. There's differences in why these should cause these different responses. We've got choices in different ways. And because we're recognizing those in emotional literacy and improving, it gives, again, a lot more choice, a lot more self-management. Now, and the way I just described that, I've obviously put that into the context of working with young people or children. But actually, it's really important that as adults, we have high levels of emotional literacy. And we can use this as a tool, because I'm a big believer in role modeling. I shouldn't be telling you to do this if I can't do this myself. So we can turn the 5-point scale, or there's other systems out there. I may do one at some point on zones of regulation, very, very similar, but kind of works slightly differently. So maybe throughout the day, we just take a pause. It may be worth setting an alarm on your phone, for instance. Take a moment to pause and ask yourself, where am I on the 5-point scale right now? This can be particularly helpful during things transitions, like when you wake up before a meeting, or when you get home from work, maybe when you sat in the car when you get home from work, for instance. And for those of you out there who are caring for others and supporting others, this is really important, because if you're at 3, 4, or 5 and you're meant to be caring for somebody else, well, shouldn't you be putting something in place to bring yourself back down to a 1 or a 2 before you go in and start caring for somebody else who may cause you slight agitation and distress? Some of you will have watched the podcast episode of the bottle of Coke analogy. It's recognizing when you're shaken. And if you can't recognize when you're shaken, much harder to recognize when other people are. You then identify your number. You rate your emotional scale on the 1 to 5. So are you feeling calm, maybe 1 or 2, or are you more agitated, perhaps 3 or 4? And you have to be honest with yourself. This is crucial. Now, then, depending on your number, you respond accordingly. You take the appropriate action. If you're a 1 and a 2, you're probably in a good place. You're doing okay. You're doing what you need to do. If you're a 3, maybe it's time to take a break. Maybe you need to do some grounding techniques, as some of you may have listened to, or we've got the free resource on the Able Hub. As far as you can listen to my voice to help you with a grounding technique, or you could do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 that we've spoken about on other episodes. But consider a quick break, take some deep breaths, maybe a walk, and look at things like, what helps me to bring my stress down? If you're at 4 or 5, it's time to employ a more significant coping strategy. Do we need to talk to somebody? Do we need to practice some mindfulness, grounding technique, or removing ourselves from a possible stressful situation, or, doing something to self-regulate, knowing that I need a break, or I've only got a little bit of energy left. Okay. Now, the other thing we can do this is to, let's say I was to keep this on an app or a diary or anything like that, and just make a note of the number, of where I was when I got the number. This is how we can actually then track patterns. Is there certain things that go in your life that actually seem to be impacting? Are you more likely to be a 3 in the afternoon for the same situation that you dealt with in a 2 in the morning? So is tiredness kicking in? Is your diet right? Are you getting enough exercise? Are you, is there something in your life that is causing imbalance? And if you've got that imbalance in your life, by recognizing the patterns of when you are at your highest agitation state, or what things you trigger, or what increases the likelihood. So we've also done an episode on the ABC analysis. It's kind of doing this on yourself, but looking at the slow stressors as well as the things that happened just before. And that can help us to kind of make changes in our life to improve our outcomes, to improve our emotional well-being, to, is it with certain people you find certain people bring you down to 1 and 2, but other people bring you up to 3 and 4. So how can you scatter more 1 and 2 people? Like the Sarah Chalice interview where she talks about the taps and drains, or I sometimes refer to radiators and drains, where are they a radiator so they bring 1 and 2 into your life, or are they a drain where they actually trigger a 4 and 5 in your life? So how can we kind of change the amount of time we're spending with each of those people? I can also use this as a communication aid, because sometimes it's really difficult to express exactly what's going on and why it's going on, especially when we're in the heightened state of arousal. If I'm really worked up, whether it be with a partner or a person or a child, if I'm getting up there towards a 4 or 5, it can be really difficult sometimes to be able to rationalize enough to go, I'm feeling this because of this, and this is what happened as a result. So in situation X, I feel Y in situation Z. Really useful tool, but it can be very difficult to express when I'm already at a heightened state of arousal. Where if I can just kind of communicate, like, I'm at a 4 right now, I just need a minute, I just need to get chilled, and then I'll be able to think about it and see what caused that. It's okay to do that, but we can be then really explicit, going, look, I'm just finding this difficult, or I don't think it's anything to do with you. It's just I'm having a tough day. I'm at 4 or 5. I need to do some self-care. I need to bring myself back down to just give me 5. And then we can then regulate that. But if we've got that as a communication aid, it's much easier to say I'm at a 4 or 5 than explain all the intricate feelings, or doing what we often tend to do is just making excuses, like being incongruent, like just going, I'm just tired. I'm just feeling ill. I've just got a headache. And it isn't actually that. It's not a headache in illness. It's a headache because of stress. But because you don't feel you can communicate that, or you don't know how to communicate that, or you don't know how to then re-regulate yourself, you just either lie to yourself or you're lying to others. And I think we often do that lying to ourselves. It's quicker and easier. It's a habit to just go, I'm tired, rather than, I'm finding something about this difficult. Just to go through again then, the 5-point scale, when we're looking at practical examples, we could kind of bring it in as far as, before we're about to do something, where are we on our 5-point scale? If it's something you're nervous about, after a long day, what works to help you? And you can work out what brings you down, not just brings you up. You have a disagreement with a friend, you're at a 5, what can you do to immediately? Or can you step away rather than reacting in your 5? Can you step away, bring yourself down to 3, and then re-engage in the conversation, for instance? The 5-point scale, the important thing to remember the 5-point scale, is not about avoiding emotions. It's about managing them. Emotions are okay. Being angry is really important. I think there's so many of us that think that bad emotions, or they're labeled as bad emotions, are bad. But it's important I feel angry. Anger lets me know that either other people aren't meeting my expectations, or somebody's doing something that I feel is detrimental to my well-being. If I'm feeling sad, that's telling me something's not okay in my world. So these are all really important emotions. The whole idea of positive thinking, we do need to have negative thinking, but recognizing the negative thinking or recognizing negative feelings, and then using those to either be constructive or destructive is what we say. I'm either going to kind of break something, or I could build something. And obviously, if I've got more control over it, I've got a better opportunity and a choice to do the constructive rather than the other way around. It's a wonderful framework that we can work both with ourselves, and I highly recommend any caregivers out there, use it on yourself. Start making a habit of what you do. Just keep a record of it to some degree. But also we can then use it with those who we support, those we work with, to help them to communicate their feelings and when they're struggling, or we may even do it where we recognize for them in the early stages. Like, can we learn to recognize when they're at a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or 5? Because if we can recognize that bottle of Coke's shaken up, we can adapt our strategy before we go and open it and get covered in the stuff. Okay. If you found anything that I've been speaking about today useful, please like, comment, and share. It's a wonderful tool. There is great resources out there as far as the incredible 5-point scale. It'd be easiest to find from that. The lady who created it does actually have a website as well. So if you just put in the incredible 5-point scale, then the website of Carrie Dunburn also comes up with resources and information on there as well. So highly recommend checking that stuff out. Otherwise, thank you very much.